In the wake of the 2020 election, we learned that Republican tears taste just as good as liberal tears. And watching lame duck President Trump, Cadet Bone Spurs, Cheeto Jesus, do his thing, showboating, grandstanding, making a dangerous moment even out of this point in history where we find ourselves in America more polarized than ever before. I watch all of this and I see that there's a growing discontent. Now, if you recall, it was 2016 when we freedom lovers of the world enjoyed the free-flowing tears of the Democratic supporters of Hillary Clinton. And as a result, you had so many people written across their foreheads at protests, "Not my president." And now, while the boot is on the other foot, the shoe of discontent has switched feet as well. And now it's conservatives. It's people like Rush Limbaugh who are saying, "Oh my gosh, this country is crazy. It's gone so far to the left. I think I'm out of here." Wait. Now, I think I'm out of here. Maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration. Maybe we're not at that point yet. But because of the discontent of the last 4 years, or at the Russian-fueled outcome of the 2016 election, we have seen liberals talking about secession like never before. Although, who knows, maybe it's part of this great libertarian conspiracy to take over the world on a shoestring budget and then, I don't know, leave everyone alone. But in California, we now have CalExit. We have a vibrant California independence movement. I'm proud to say that I'm friends with a number of people involved in pushing for California to fall off into the ocean. I mean, secede from the Union. I don't think we would miss them, would we? I love California as my home state. We joke. But you look around the United States, there are a number of significant, serious, I'm sure every Democrat or Republican elected when asked about this will say, "Oh, no, those aren't serious." That's just some libertarian thing. But in California, there's also the Northern California, Southern Oregon, Jefferson State plan to create a new state. In Colorado, even, there's the 51st State Project to make a new state with parts of, I think it's Wyoming, Nebraska, and Kansas, and the northeast corner of Colorado. Vermont has always had a strong independent streak, along with New Hampshire and the Free State Project. In the era of Trump, Washington and Oregon State even had significant chatter about breaking off from the Union. There's America's penis, Florida, which I think we've been trying to cut off for years now to no avail. But then we've got the great Republic of Texas also with the strong independence movement. And I see there's like a national, swinging of the pendulum. It goes left, it goes right. Is there progress made as it swings from one side to the other? Those who felt the warm, cozy embrace of the in crowd, sitting at the cool table, having your political party in charge, vindicating you and your worldview. As it swings away from that, people feel left in the cold, unrepresented. And I would hope that every time we have a swing like this, there are people who are saying, "You know what? I don't want to be swinging on someone else's pendulum. I don't want to be going back and forth. No, I'm going to just let go and give up my sense of nationalism, of ego, of attachment of Stockholm Syndrome. And now we also have Rush Limbaugh on the team. Maybe. Quickly though, think about it. Biden hasn't even taken office yet. And Rush Limbaugh, as much as I bow down to the legend of radio, but he's never been much of a rebel. He's been more of a vote Republican and go back to sleep kind of guy. So when I hear him coming out so early, it's like now he's teasing. I mean, what Rush Limbaugh, winner of the Presidential Medal of Freedom under Trump, no one would feel more left in the cold than someone who was once in the warm embrace of our Cheeto Jesus himself. But this soon in the process now, Rush Limbaugh. Now this was headline at Drudge Report today. I woke up and got a second morning wood here. Limbaugh heading towards secession. Wow. Really? And then, by the way, the other headlines on Drudge at the top today. Trump threatens dangerous moment. Yeah, okay, we'll come back to that story. Republican crack up. Yeah. Now this is where we see enough destabilizing events in the United States and the political system that secession is possible like never before. And there's something to be said for us, the millennial generation. Yeah, I know I'm 38. I'm the oldest of the millennials, or the youngest of the Xers. No, but when you're in between generations, you always identify with the younger one. But about us millennials coming into power politically, it is our time. Those of us who grew up with the internet have no attachment to the idea that we just have to always do things that way because that's the way it's always been done. No. Just because it's tradition doesn't mean it's not incredibly stupid. And this idea of being tied together in a central government of disparate communities being forced into singular political systems, that idea seems ready for the dustbin of history. Now, in this conversation with Rush, where exactly is Rush Limbaugh on this? He had a caller challenging him on, why not get out of here? And then he has his little side conversation. He uses producer Snurdly, the way that I talk to producer CJ sometimes here. And they talk a lot about the culture war. And frankly, it's disgusting. What is culture? A set of habits, patterns, expectations? Culture? You're going to fight a war over culture? I mean, culture is that social force which leads you to do something today because you did it yesterday, or to do something tomorrow because of what was done today, as a sort of natural continuum without breaks or evolution. I mean, you can't win a culture war against something that is constantly evolving, can you? No, it's a silly trope of conservatives, primarily, to say we have to win the culture war. What does that mean? In some ways, it's the ultimate goal of any culture war would be victory, which would be uniformity of behavior. That's what they want. It's conformity. It's conform to my culture. Winning the culture war means let's get everybody to embrace my culture and do what I want them to do. It's a really sick proxy for statism as a desire to control others, as an indulgence of the central planning fallacy that you know better as a central planner than the collective wisdom of millions acting together in a free market. And I mean, make no mistake, Rush Limbaugh, for all that I want to give him credit for, Uh, is a conservative the way that a shit sandwich that's got 10% meat in it is one that you're gonna eat and call a hamburger, right? No, 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 no. Rush Limbaugh is a modern American mainstream conservative, and by some estimates, is you might as well let him define the term as one of the leading proponents of modern American conservatism, which incidentally is a flavor of socialism. Yeah, Rush Limbaugh may talk a good game, but when it comes down to policy, and actually what he calls for, I mean, first of all, he has been an ardent supporter of the red team on the American Socialist Party. Yeah, we don't have a duopoly, we have a monopoly. Yeah, we have the choice as Americans to choose between red flavored socialism and blue flavored socialism, or communism or fascism. And yes, we have the majority of the 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto in effect in America. And we more than qualify for Mussolini's definition of fascism, who said it would be better described as corporatism, the merging of corporations and state. So Rush Limbaugh isn't getting his way anymore. Somebody else's flavor of statism is being forced on him now, but not even yet, not until maybe January, with Biden taking office. So this quote from Limbaugh, I thought you were asking me something else when you said, "Can we win?" I thought you meant, "Can we win the culture? Can we dominate the culture?" Yeah, and dominate. Like I'm not one of these people who's triggered by the word dominate. I mean, I like dominating, but there's dominate the culture. That is, you want to dictate what other people do. I actually think, and I've referenced this, I've alluded to this a couple of times, I've seen others allude to this, I actually think that we're trending towards secession. And Rush, I absolutely agree with you. We are. America is trending towards secession. We are going to redraw all the lines on the map based on things that make sense, as opposed to history of statism, of violence, conquest, and circumstance of history that leads to the boundaries of political bodies that we see today. No, they're not in most places, certainly not in the United States, rational or based on communities. All right, back to Rush. I see more and more people asking, what in the world do we have in common with the people who live in, say, New York? What is there that makes us believe there's enough of us that even have a chance at winning New York, especially if you're talking about votes? I see a lot of bloggers, I can't think of names right now, a lot of bloggers have written extensively about how distant and separated and how much more separated our culture is becoming politically, and that it can't go on this way. There cannot be a peaceful coexistence of two completely different theories of life, theories of government, theories of how we manage our affairs. We can't be in this dire conflict without something giving somewhere along the way. Yeah. Now, if you're an idiot, you might think there are exactly two sides to every story. And it pains me to hear someone like Rush so intellectually pigeonholed in the two-party system, the one-dimensional spectrum of left-right. But the peaceful coexistence, that's oh, okay. Wow. All right. Rush, you're suddenly a fan of peaceful coexistence. All right. Well, the only way to truly achieve that is to not have the violent forcing of all these disparate communities into a singular political system. So Rush goes on. I know that there's a sizable and growing sentiment for people who believe that is where we're headed, whether we want it or not, whether we want to go there or not. I myself haven't made up my mind. I still haven't given up the idea that we are the majority and that all we have to do is find a way to unite and win. Excuse me? Real? Oh, so that's the premise of your one of your premises. Wow. So if you're not the majority, screw you guys. I'm going home. Like Eric Hartman, really? I mean, Eric Cartman as Rush Limbaugh. Yeah, he was pretty good. But Um, we have to win. We have to be the majority. We have to win, and so we have to rush. You see what you're saying here is that in order for your worldview to work, you have to have a minority of losers that the majority force themselves on. It doesn't sound like peaceful coexistence. It sounds like oppression. Rush goes on, and our problem is the fact that there are just so many rhinos, so many Republicans in the Washington establishment who will do anything to maintain their membership in the establishment because of the perks and the opportunities that are presented for their kids and so forth. Oh, really? And Rush doesn't have any perks of his own. Okay. Okay. Well, here's the problem with the rush to secession. If it happens state by state, if it happens without a deliberate moment of national awareness of these ideas, where we have 50 state secession all at once and we all get our stuff back, at least proportionally, we can take back what has been stolen by the federal government. That's what I'd like to see. There is no rush to secession. If anything, what we have seen historically by tyrants is a rush to conglomerization of political bodies, of consolidation of power, of empires. And now that the American empire seems to be following the arc of empires and is on the decline, it's time. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes, according to Mark Twain. And the one thing we learn from history is that we never freaking learn from history. But perhaps now we have learned enough. And it's not that it's just a cycle that just goes around and around and around, and we never learn. And every time it rhymes, it just keeps going around and around and around. But at some point, we learn, whether we like it or not. And with every revolution is more and more progress and a spiral, an ascension. And with that, hopefully, America can learn some of these lessons of history and truly rush to secession. And today is Thursday, December 10th,
The lings are
2020.
Of eternity. Because in the ling, there is no beginning. There is no end. Because it's a circle.
That's kind of nice.
It's not like a triangle. Triangle has like a corner and the end. This one is a circle.
Okay, we get it. 3 quarters.
Thank you, CJ. Welcome to Adam versus the Man. Let's get comment Jim Freedom, our co-host, up on screen here. I hope you all enjoyed that cold open. Oh man, secession, top story on Drudge Report, dude. You know that's what I'm going to be talking about, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good time. Secession is always good, even if it comes with limitations from a person that needs to be questioned. Otherwise, it's still good that it's in the general conversation.
Yeah. No, I mean, don't underestimate what Rush Limbaugh represents. There are Rush babies, people who grew up listening to Rush Limbaugh. There are fan clubs. He's the heavyweight. He's the elephant in the room, so to speak. And to your point, he really does represent. Now, whether it's him actually, I kind of doubt. I mean that someone as smart as Rush Limbaugh, who spends as much time with his head in the news as Rush Limbaugh, is actually as dumb as most of his listeners. But ooh, Rush baby, there it is. Yeah, even got an entry in the Urban Dictionary. But yeah, Rush, I think he has at least crafted his message and his public presentation of his worldview in such a way that he has tried to represent that biggest singular block that he can, and he's been very successful at it.
Yeah, good point. As far as comments go, we got our normal good mornings from a few people. Your brother's joining us, Alden.
Mango Mussolini. Oh, I should have included that one. Well, see, Alden, thank you. I had all these in my notes when I was running for president and offering that 50-state secession plan. and debates, be able to like bust them out. But I never had mango Mussolini. Now I do, and it's too late. Too late.
That could have changed everything.
Could have changed everything. Farewell to mango Mussolini.
Tom Kuchenmeister, give me the Republic of Texas in the interest of liberty. South Dakota Libertarians for Texas. CJ liked that one. CJ's like, yep.
Well, Texas is a really interesting everything. Yeah, but on the point of secession or being like libertarian, I think in terms of the divergence between talking a good game about liberty and not living up to it, Texas is the worst.
Yeah.
There are a few states that talk a better game about liberty, but they all fail at it a lot less. Whereas Texas is up there, not the best, but they talk a pretty good game about freedom. But holy crap, do they fail to live up to it like very few other states. Mandatory HPV vaccinations, giant state government, some of the worst COVID lockdowns, gun control. Oh, Texans love their guns and their gun control, apparently. And still some of the conservative social restrictions. It really is, the worst of all worlds of statism in Texas. They call the Great Republic of Texas. Well, if Texas went independent and kept all of its current policies, they'd have to call it the Socialist Republic of Texas.
People would not be happy with that. Let's see. 1054 says, remember the Obama bumper stickers? Quote, he is your president. Yeah, that sentiment didn't age well. Democrats' tears tend to be a bit saltier.
Really? Hold on a second.
I still think they're the same, but he thinks they're saltier.
Can we get a scientific study to examine the saltiness of Republican tears versus Democrat tears for the actual sodium content? No, but what do we mean by salty here, Jim? What do you take as the definition of the word in this context?
Well, in this context, I don't really know. I mean, saltier is supposed to just mean like more butthurt, more prevalent, more standoutish. But I don't know if that's the case, really.
All right. Hey, we have a question from CJ. Well, CJ wants to remind us that we are doing a new contest to give away membership in the Producers Club. And we're just going to probably keep going with this. But best caller. And if we don't have a caller, we'll do comments. But anybody who wants to call in, we're going to get the call-in link. It's really awesome. It's really easy with StreamYard. Couple clicks and you're in, and you can have your camera on or off. Doesn't matter. You can call voice only. So yeah, I mean, I love the interaction. I love the emails, and I know not everybody has the indulgence of spending from 10 a.m. to noon Pacific time, or excuse me, 9 to 11. It's 10 to noon Arizona time now. But yeah, 9 to 11 a.m. Pacific time, Monday through Friday, we are live here, and I know it's quite a wonderful luxury, isn't it, to be able to start your day with some freedom and to look at the world with a wonderful community like this. And you can support this show by becoming a member. Go to AdamVersusTheMan. AdamVersusTheMan.com, and you can check out our Patreon from there. Patreon.com/AdamVersusTheMan. $10 a month gets you membership into the Producers Club, and that gets you, along with our better patrons, 15% off on our store at AdamVersusTheMan.com and free shipping. Pretty cool deal CJ's got set up there with some really awesome items on the AdamVersusTheMan.com store. You can also support the show through our affiliate. If you're a cigar smoker like me, check out CigarFederation.com, where promo code Adam10 ADAM10 gets you 10% off. And don't forget, MakeThemDebate.com. Come on, somebody, let's make another debate happen. We had a lot of fun with the first one. Help Mercedes out here. MakeThemDebate.com. By the way, I had a fun day yesterday. I got my wood chipper going. Technically, it's a shredder because it's a twig. It's a little branch, wood chipper here at the garden. I need to take some more pictures. I haven't been taking pictures lately. I apologize. I know people are complaining, like, hey, what's going on there? nothing too exciting. Things are progressing. The scorpion kittens are growing. And if you want to find out more about what's going on at the Garden of Freedom or Gardenia Sovereignty Project, please find us on Instagram at the Garden of Freedom. So, Jim, any other comments? I mean, we do have, believe it or not, we do have. Wait a second. Did I get through an opening segment without mentioning the virus which shall not be named?
Don't ruin it now. Yep, we're good so far. So yeah, let's get through whatever blocks we do have. I just put the link in the chat from wherever you're watching from. So click on that link, copy and paste it into your browser, use headphones if possible. Audio calls are also acceptable. So call in, have an opinion, say something.
All right, we got a social media block today. We got some politics updates, whether you like it or not. We got some international news, and we have a COVID block. But we also have some good tech news and science stuff. So let's get into this. This is really big news, and I mean, I hope that CJ doesn't think that talking about social media stuff is getting to be like talking about Corona, but it is. I mean, how much you count the hours? How many hours do you spend on social media? But even without counting the hours, there is at some point a role that social media has taken on in the global human conversation that really can't be measured in just hours. But what is the significance of this new venue for the human conversation? I mean, new historically speaking. Don't worry, I'm not new to the internet. This story from CNN.com: Facebook must be broken up, the U.S. government says, in a groundbreaking lawsuit. Now, to what extent is it really groundbreaking? We've seen other attempts at this before, and not with Facebook specifically, not like this, but other, with Microsoft. Remember, there was the antitrust lawsuit. I think it was over a decade ago. And now that the government is going after Facebook, is it going to be successful? Who knows? And CJ is putting up the numbers for the social media websites there. If you want to get those back up, I'll read those real quick. I think that's a good perspective, CJ. I think there was a clip from what was that documentary, the one that I recommended. But can we get those numbers back on screen? Yeah, there it is. Social media users based on let's see, what is that? I'm sorry, I can't read it. Give me just a second here. This is based on mobile users: Facebook, Instagram, Facebook Messenger, Twitter, Pinterest, Snapchat, Reddit, Tumblr, WhatsApp. I mean, you get Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and those, if you count Facebook Messenger as part of Facebook, and essentially I do. I get it that it's a different app, but no, those are the big three, and they really do dominate the human conversation. And the shifts in policy with censorship and what is shared, what is promoted in people's feeds, can have major implications for society, for for just what people understand of current events. So so let's get into this. What are they actually trying to do with Facebook here? Dozens of states and the federal government sued Facebook on Wednesday in twin antitrust lawsuits, alleging that the social media giant has abused its dominance in the digital marketplace and engaged in anti-competitive behavior. Now, this corporate monster is a monster of the government's own creation through corporatism, through intellectual property, all of the general government policies that favor large corporations over small businesses. But even deeper than that, we could go to the conspiracies of Facebook versus MySpace. Remember Tom? Tom was everybody's friend, and that's a for you kiddies out there, that's a MySpace reference. Look it up. And the social network, some of the maneuvering, but there's and this is not a conspiracy theory hole that I've jumped down, but because I don't think it would be very satisfying. I don't know if someone in the producers club or someone, if someone thinks, if someone has jumped down this hole, you report to me from the bottom. But it's the theory that Facebook was not organic corporate creation. Obviously, it wasn't. But no, in the sense that there might have been some government involvement, there might have been some stealing of ideas from MySpace, there might have been some other manipulation that leads us to Mark Zuckerberg as the fence post turtle, sitting there going, "Oh, geez, now I was just a kid at Harvard trying to figure out this." So, but I don't. You don't get to be who Mark Zuckerberg is today without permission from the rest of the super class. So I wonder how I don't think there are going to be any. If you look into this, I don't think you're going to find any satisfying answers. I could be wrong, but is it possible that Mark Zuckerberg is a recruited front man for some giant corporate conspiracy? Oh yeah, and I'm not trying to say we got to assume that this is the truth because this is the elephant in the room or any kind of thing like that. But it is a theory that just sort of makes a lot of sense. I hate to say that, but there are a lot of things that are kind of unexplained about Facebook and these bigger dynamics. And how did Facebook really take over from MySpace so decisively? And now I'm open to this theory not being true. I'm not like hung up on this, but if it's not true, then and the Facebook story is more or less. I mean, what was the last time a big story involving so much money and power was presented to the public exactly as it was in reality? It's highly unlikely. But if the Facebook story is more or less true, then Zuckerberg is scary powerful, not just because of his wealth. I mean, that would be one thing, but because of his ability to steer the conversation and in so many ways influence American politics or politics really around the world. The Federal Trade Commission in particular is seeking a permanent injunction in federal court that could, among other things, require the company to divest assets, including Instagram and WhatsApp, effectively breaking up Facebook as we know it. The states are also calling for the company to be broken up if necessary. Personal social networking is central to the lives of Americans, said Ian Connor, director of the FTC's Bureau of Competition, in a statement. Facebook's actions to entrench and maintain its monopoly deny consumers the benefit of competition. Our aim is to roll back Facebook's anti-competitive conduct and restore competition so that innovation and free competition can thrive. Oh yeah, because government's all about freedom and competition. No socialism, no corporatism, of course not. No, but so even with this lawsuit, why do I say all that background stuff about Facebook and my understanding of it as a corporation with its history? When you see the government going after this monster that they have created, there are different conspiracies around this. I mean, you have people conspiring, working together to take advantage of others. Like Congress. Congress is one big conspiracy, of course, by that definition. And in this case, you have members of Congress, you have FTC appointees, you have everybody who has, some political stake or otherwise in the future of Facebook. So, do they care? Like, if you think about it from the perspective of the powers that be, they love that Facebook is doing what it's doing, serving them, serving government, serving the ideology of statism, entrenching the status quo, serving the purpose of government, or at least helping government serve its purpose of the super rich getting richer at the expense of the rest of us. The parallel lawsuits, months in the making, represent an unprecedented challenge to one of Silicon Valley's most powerful corporations. The complaints zero in on Facebook's acquisition and control over Instagram and WhatsApp, two key services in its social media empire. Facebook announced in 2012 that it was buying Instagram for $1 billion. 2 years later, it announced a $19 billion acquisition of WhatsApp. Now, remember, it's not like Facebook went rogue off the reservation and civilly disobedient, what went around government. No. They did this with government support and permission. But if you're the super class, right, and you like how Facebook is functioning, you don't really want to challenge this. But you want to keep your overall racket going. You want to protect the super class, and you might be going to if Zuckerberg's one of your homeboys, and you go to him, you go, "Hey, dude, this Facebook thing, this corporation, this whole, like, Facebook's great. We love Mark. Imagine a representative on the imaginary elite global council of banksters going to Zuckerberg and saying, you know what, Mark, we really like what you're doing with Facebook, and we really we don't want to change that or threaten that in any way. We appreciate how you're screwing up the freedom of speech on the internet and making sure that dissenting voices aren't heard on your platform. We think that's absolutely great. But you've been a little clumsy about it, and you've pissed off too many people, and you've gone a little too far. You've acquired a little too much. Well, it's not that you've acquired too much. We don't really care about that. As long as you're managing WhatsApp and Instagram. And by the way, Mark, you're doing a great job with Instagram too. Helping us get those ads in front of people, getting people looking at fitness models instead of political memes. I mean, it's great. It is. We love it. Problem is, we want you to. We love you, Mark. You're one of us. You're a critical part of the team of the elites. And we're afraid that there's so much anti-Facebook sentiment at this point that it's time for us to do something, to have some kind of grand gesture of smacking you down. We're going to make it look like we don't like. We're going to make it look like. By the way, this is going to be a great way to trick people into thinking that the system works, and that it holds people like you, people like us, right, accountable for crimes or things like anti-competitive practices and all this stuff that people are accusing you of. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this. I mean, we're going to make, you've been to DC. You've sat in front of Congress enough times. You're used to the whole rigmarole. We're going to call you back to DC. We're going to have this big lawsuit, and it's going to make you look bad. But we know you don't care, just like the rest of us. So thank you for playing that role, Mr. Zuckerberg. We do appreciate that you're one of the more public members of the super class. So you're going to take some hits, PR wise, but it is going to make sure that the racket of statism and central banks and corporatism and the oligopoly control over social media continues. Could have gone that way, right? So, what is the challenge here? If they say we're actually going to break them up, is it going to change any of these fundamental facts of statism and social media and corporatism? No. I mean, maybe they're going to go to Mark and say, look, Mark, we see you've done some unpopular things that are good for your business, and we get it. We all do stuff like this. But hey, while we go through this lawsuit, we're going to have the government mandate that you be a little bit nicer. So be ready for that. Be humble, be apologetic, and it'll be, we won't really change anything. It'll be good for us for the long term. And if I had to make a prediction, that's what's going to happen. There's going to be some corporate reorganization with Facebook, perhaps, at most. But is it going to really affect Zuckerberg personally or his power? No, I don't think so. As the drumbeat in Washington against Facebook has grown louder, the company has had years to prepare for a shutdown. Shutdown. Was I thinking about the virus? It's moved to tightly integrate its apps on a technical level, a decision some critics have suggested is a strategy to frustrate any potential breakup. It stepped up its hiring of lawyers with antitrust and litigation experience, and the company has fine-tuned its talking points, settling on a narrative that Facebook welcomes regulation, but that cracking down too hard could risk giving other countries like China a competitive edge in the fast-moving technology sector. Maybe that's what I was thinking about the virus, right? We have to give Facebook more power because China. Because China, obviously, because China. Yeah, right. By the way, second state this year to face lawsuits over antitrust concerns. In October, Justice Department in 11 states filed a lawsuit against Google, alleging that it stifled competition to maintain its powerful place in online search and search advertising. Google called the suit deeply flawed and that consumers use Google's platform because they choose to, not because they are forced to. The last major tech antitrust suit before that, experts say, dates back to the U.S. government's landmark case against Microsoft, as this is in the late 90s and early 2000s. It was well over a decade ago. So this thing about Google, right? Yeah, you're not forced to use Google, but you are forced to pay taxes. And those taxes go to a government that supports Google, supports infrastructure, supports regulation that support Google. So, you don't have a choice. By the way, that money that is taken from you by government is also used to oppress would-be competitors to Google. That would give you a better choice. That would make this corporate consolidation much less likely. I should say much more in in a natural state of market balance. So these can take many years, and this is kind of like a negotiation. Whether Zuckerberg or Tom built social media, Facebook as we know it, or who's really responsible for that, there's a big piece of the pie, and there are a lot of people trying to get their fingers in on it right now. So the article concludes here, court ruling that breaks up Facebook or imposes certain behavioral limitations could have wide-ranging effects on what new startups may emerge and what products consumers see in the marketplace. And that's something that is kind of an unfortunate shift that we all know about with the development of social media, where developers, rather than creating an app or a technology or a service or a company intended to thrive in the market, it's what they're doing is trying to design something to sell out. The goal in this sector of tech innovation is no longer create your own company. It's if you're successful, you'll get bought by Facebook. So CJ, I'm sorry, I had another story in here that's basically the same thing from CNBC. We can skip that and go on to NBC News. Federal Trade Commission calls for breakup of Facebook. Actually, we had three stories. They're basically the same thing. But yeah, this is I looked at these stories and some of them were sent in the Producers Club because this is an important story, even if it is just a lot less than what it seems, right? Because what they want you to think of it as is this this noble effort by government to hold a corporation that's gotten out of control accountable. That's not what it is. But to whatever extent we see that it might be some significant shakeup of corporate organization or change in policy or a meaningful change in social media, and hopefully wait a second, did I just for a second hope that there's going to be some positive outcome for internet censorship as a result of this? That's silly. All right, as maybe a little fun counterpoint, CBS has this story: Google's top trending search queries for 2020 highlight one of the strangest years of all time. The COVID-19 pandemic, I mentioned it. Whoops. Protests, wildfires, and a high-stakes presidential election. 2020 was one chaotic year, and a surge of people turned to Google for answers. Now the search giant has released the Year in Search, its annual snapshot of the year's most important search terms, news stories, entertainers, and politicians. And wow. So there are trillions of queries over the course of a year that are aggregators for this. They filter out junk data like duplicate queries, then make a list reflecting the events that the company says most define the year. To identify trends, Google's algorithm looks for the percentage increase in searches for a term over a period of time relative to other searches. This year, searches for election results topped the list, and searches related to coronavirus were ubiquitous across categories. Kobe Bryant, Joe Biden, and stimulus checks were also widely searched search terms. And like the stimulus checks. Yeah, everybody's searching for stimulus checks. One thing that has been incredible to see in the data is the unprecedented shift in people's information needs. Said Google's data editor Simon Rogers, for example, Google launched a COVID-19 news page when its internal trend tracking tools flagged a spike in searches related to the coronavirus. Instead of presenting a traditional page with search results, searches related to COVID-19 Carina display timely and accurate information from vetted medical sources like the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, WHO, and local news. As they explained, we worked with partners at the international, national, and even local levels to connect people with the critical info. The page also used public data sources to display updated information like Carina statistics in Google Maps. Now, when I hear a story like this, oh, yeah, it's a weird year. Yeah, well, it's certainly a perspective distorting year. In a year like this, and even me to say a year like this, what does that mean? A year where the mainstream media has convinced us that it is a year like this? No, but there is, I want to ask, how out of the norm is this year? And there's a great YouTube video about the worst year ever. Spoiler alert: it was 536 AD when a volcanic eruption created a similar black cloud over all of the planet, or at least enough of the planet that crops were ruined because of lack of access to sunlight. There were nutritional deficiencies in large civilizations of the time, and massive outbreaks of plagues and people dying with bursting boils of pus in the streets. I mean, yeah, that was 536 AD, and some of the years following. You look at 2020, you go, we got this, no big deal. But just how out of the norm is 2020? Well, according to the story, there were other atypical trends this year. The most interesting topics reflected how people adjusted to a new normal. Queries about dalgona coffee, a popular comfort food trend on social network TikTok, and banana bread recipes hit an all-time high. And questions about how to cut your own hair remained popular all year. By the way, another coronavirus silver lining. I've always been a big fan of cutting my own hair and doing, like, I even when I had a buzz cut, I just did it myself once a week. Now I haven't cut my hair except to trim my beard in weeks, and I'm growing it out. That's how weird this year is. Yeah. Fires near me and earthquake near me were two of the top trending local queries this year. It's also the 20th anniversary of Google's year in search. Nostradamus, Osama bin Laden, and Eminem were the top queries when the list launched in 2001. At the time, the zeitgeist nature of the list was intended to demonstrate the scope of the fledgling startup's search technology, and user base, and to differentiate Google in a once crowded search engine market, which included competitors like Yahoo, Ask Jeeves, and Inktomi. Remember when we had a crowded search engine market? It's funny when there's such a quasi monopoly as this. People complain there's not enough choice, there's not enough competition in the market, and then we have people like CBS telling us that a market with too much competition, too much choice is crowded. Yeah, okay, no, it is actually quite a testament over the 20 years of Google's year in search that they have come to beat out the competition so badly, that there has been such a conglomerization of corporate power under Google. And that's the story that you won't see in this kind of article or in Google searches. But, Google having bought YouTube and then reorganized under Alphabet. Yeah, it's scary. Scary how much power this one company and really a handful of people steering it have over so much of our lives. When the list launched, it was just one simple web page with a few subcategories. Today, Google publishes hundreds of trending categories in multiple languages. So here are some of Google's top trending search queries for 2020. For searches, election results, coronavirus, spelled incorrectly as C-O-R-O-N-A as opposed to K-A-R-E-N-A. Kobe Bryant, coronavirus update, coronavirus symptoms, news, election results, coronavirus, stimulus checks, unemployment, Iran. People, Joe Biden, Kim Jong-un, Kamala Harris, Jacob Blake, I don't know who that is. Ryan Newman, a NASCAR driver. They had to put Ryan Newman. They had to put for him. He gets. Why is it that Ryan Newman gets a NASCAR driver next to him, but Kamala Harris doesn't get a vindictive, statist, prosecuting evil woman who wants to put you in jail for victimless crimes? Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice if they, put accurate labels on things. Oh, Jacob Blake. It was the shooting of Jacob Blake from August 23rd, the 29-year-old African-American man, and this is according to Google, of course, who was shot and seriously injured by police officer Rustin Shesky in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Yeah, so this was the Kenosha the guy who was shot in the back and then shot in the back 7 times and lived. So back to the trends. Yeah, so many shootings. It's just hard to remember all these names. And then politicians: Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Boris Johnson, Pete Buttigieg, and Mike Bloomberg. That was your 2020. How weird is it? I don't know. Certainly, I mean, fires in Australia, COVID around the world, a crazy election, shootings, BLM, George Floyd. Yeah, it's been an interesting year so far, but how out of the norm is this? I think it's important to point out that most things continue as per the momentum of society and humanity's great dance forward, except for the major outlier of that virus which shall not be named. And what makes that unique historically compared to any of these other events or trends or so-called anomalies is that around the coronavirus crisis, which is more as a result of the governments of the world's responses rather than the virus itself, we see perhaps the greatest crime in world history, the greatest. I mean, I guess you got to take the wars out in that ranking, right? But perhaps the greatest consolidation of wealth and power ever seen in all of human history. That's what makes 2020 truly unusual. I hope that it is followed by a commensurately unusual year of enlightenment and learning the lessons of 2020. We can only hope that 2021 will be that much more unusual, as opposed to seeing 2020 as not just a bad year, but the start of a bad decade or century, or who knows. But no, if we the people need to write the history of 2020 and the coronavirus crisis in particular, in order to make sure that we can have a year of unusual progress after this year of unusual setbacks. We go now to Comment Jim Freedom, our co-host from Phoenix, Colin from Phoenix. Join us from Phoenix, from the Anna versus the Man remote studios. Jim, anybody want to call in? We're giving away Producers Club membership. Nobody wants to call in today, really?
Not yet. No callers just as of yet. But let's see. Let's start with Craig Darty. Has a pretty good question. He says, I wonder if the giant tech social media platforms will be someday broken up like Bell, the Bell company. That was the telephone company. With the baby bells, there was more competition for long distance services, and phone technology changed forever.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm surprised that hasn't come up more. I the corporate history of America is not one that they're eager to teach in government schools, of course. The breakup of Ma Bell was, Craig says there that it was responsible for. Put that comment back up. I want to just take issue with one little part there, that it led to more competition for long distance services. And yeah, I don't dispute that. Certainly, that was an effect of it. And phone technology changed forever. Absolutely, I totally agree with that. But Craig seems to be attributing that to the breakup of Ma Bell, and it's got to be a little more complicated than that, right? Because you could you could still have hypothetically, a monopoly or oligopoly, and have all the same advances in technology that you would have with competition. You just don't have the incentives for innovation or to compete if you don't allow that competition in the first place. But I think the technology that we saw, well, I don't know. I guess maybe Craig is right to say that those can be, directly connected. That the breakup of the Ma Bells, led to those outcomes. I would just want to always point out that there's an underlying story to that, and I don't know the history of the breakup of the Bells and the baby Bells, but yeah, that was certainly an example that they've got entrenched in the American psyche, at least, as even though they don't talk about it that much, as one like, oh yeah, I remember that one time we had that corporation got out of control and we fixed it. I think that's an important government mythology that backs up a lot of the power that they claim today in managing American corporations.
American monopolies. Greg, there's some text for you there if anybody wants to pause their screen and read all that to themselves.
Or go to Wikipedia and find the article that CJ did called "Breakup of the Bell System." Yeah. Now I feel like that's going to be my homework for tonight. I've always got a big pile of links pulled up, but yeah, breakup of the Bell System. All right, I will have that, CJ. That will be in my my homework for the evening.
Lowkey 209 agrees that this is not the worst year ever. He has personally had worse years than this, so he doesn't even have to go all the way back to 536 AD.
Well, it seems like there's a sort of modern trend. Maybe it's a product of the internet conversation, the mentality to be hyperbolic about, oh, this was the worst year ever. I've never heard anybody say this was the best year ever.
I'm sure somebody that won, $100,000 on a lottery scratch off did.
Yeah. No. I don't mean, Jim. I don't mean like that on an individual basis.
Right, okay.
There are plenty of people who said, "Oh, I had my best year ever." Well, yeah, you only had so many to choose from. But have you heard anybody? Like, I'm just pointing this out. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to ask: have you ever heard someone on the internet making the case that this past year was the best? I don't mean 2020. I mean ever, like since the internet. This is the best year humanity's ever had. Right? There seems to be a tendency towards hyperbolic negativity on the internet. Is that just stating the obvious? But in terms of when we look at the Jim, have you ever heard anybody on the internet, in the history of the internet, making the case, yes, this past year was the best year we've ever had for humanity?
Yeah, I was trying to think of it. I feel like I should have been able to think of at least one video, but like you said, that would be more of a individual case, somebody just saying that because something happened to them. I guess now that I think of it, I haven't come across anybody trying to argue that it's the best year ever for any particular reason. Some people were claiming that, the progress being made towards people waking up to the nature of the federal government and wanting to abolish it, things like that, make it the best year ever. But, again, that's just a personal preference.
Yeah, and no one from that has made the claim that therefore it was the best year overall for humanity, right? I've heard, it was the best year for freedom. More people woke up because of this or that or whatever. And Libertarian Party, vote totals or membership grew more than ever before. Yeah, that's great. I'm all for that. But that's not what we're talking about here,
right?
Because this is a weird phenomena of negativity. I want to even say, I guess you could identify it as, it is a sort of weird phenomena of hyper negativity on the internet, that when we look at the whole human experience, we look at the entire human family over, it's not arbitrary. It is how long it takes the sun, does the sun move around the earth? Is it flat? Okay, yeah, for the earth to move around the sun. But it is kind of, in terms of evaluating, a period of human history, it's arbitrary, right? We look at things by years, There's a natural human psychological inclination. It's a nice time divider. But why, when it comes to looking at the past year as a good year or a bad year, it always seems to be a shitty year. And I think it's just more so than ever, people are looking at this and going like, yeah, this is at least uniquely bad, and therefore we're gonna have fun being hyperbolic about it on the internet. Can you explain this to me, Jim? You have a theory?
Well, I'm just thinking my only theory, I guess, is it's possible that those are the circles that were like the echo chamber theory. You know what I mean? That's all we're seeing, all we're hearing. I'm sure there are groups out there trying to legitimately make the argument. There's some church or something somewhere saying this is the best year because, you know, the revelation's going to start or some shit. You know, I'm sure there's people making the argument legitimately, but we're not hearing it because it doesn't really. I don't know.
No, I appreciate you asking that question, Jim, to like check our biases, right? Do we have an information bias or sort of selection bubble bias? I don't know. I don't think so. I'm pretty sure, just think about it for a second. I'm pretty sure we can say that we've peaked outside our bubble enough, and there are people on the internet hyperbolically going, this is a shitty year. Or this is, worst year of your lifetime, or worst year ever. I don't know about that. CJ has a few things he wants to weigh in on from our producers club, which you can win membership in by having the best call in today. CJ writes, Falcor is my spirit animal today. Look at that smirk. And now Falcor, that was the smirk of, I'm going to go pee on a politician, right? Okay.
Yeah.
CJ also said, professionally for me, this has been the best year of my life. That's awesome. That is awesome. He also says, I know when I go out in public, people with masks won't approach me if I'm not wearing one. I learned that only cops will approach me in public, and that is only if I give them probable cause. So we'll take the positives in 2020. And I don't mind wearing a mask in public, and was encouraging it before COVID was a thing. It was a felony in some states before COVID to wear a mask in public. Yeah, well, by that measure, something that used to be a felony is now common practice. That makes it a pretty good year, right?
Right. Yeah, by that argument, I suppose so. Loki 209 says, I'll bet if you went back to the Obama fanboy era, people would have claimed best year ever.
Yeah, maybe there were some, but I'm checking my memory. Like well, look at 2016 when Trump won, where Trump supporters going, oh, this is the best year ever for humanity because Trump won. Remember, we're talking about for humanity, not America, not you personally, right? But even when Obama won, 2008 from, the fall, as a shift from the Bush years. Remember, if you thought that Obama winning was the best thing for humanity, George W. was president that entire year of 2008. Remember? He didn't leave until January 2009. That's how that shit works. So you can't these sort of arbitrary time constraints maybe lend themselves to negative analysis. I don't know. I think there's more to it.
Yeah. If they were honest with themselves in their self-evaluation, they would not say Obama's first year was the best year ever. That's my opinion. 1054 weighs in about the censorship block we were talking about on Facebook and etc. And he said Google was talking about the top searches, what everybody's searching for. And he says, and just like that, Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein aren't among the top Google search leaders.
Yeah.
Are they even in that list? Where did they show up? Because they're high. I guarantee you they're high.
No, see, now I want to check. Hold on. I got to check this. This would be really interesting. Let's see. Recently closed tabs. Because I pulled up the full, it's trends.google.com / a bunch of shit, year in search 2020. No, I don't. Can you search the search? No, you can't. Well, let's see. Can I click into, would it be overall searches? I mean, I see a contradiction here already. Searches coronavirus, election results, Kobe Bryant, Zoom, IPL, and then athletes. Kobe Bryant's not on there. Did he not? This is definitely a manipulated list. I mean, they know that lots of people are going to be looking at this, and they have the ability to and to to make it look like people are
Debatable.
it's well, let's see, show 5 more. No, they only go to top 10 for each one. Well, let's see. Wow. I can copy, I can embed, and I can share, but I can't. Let's see, global, where I can select a country to look at trends. But yeah, and I can go. There's another link. Explore the trends that define 2020. Yeah, no, we miss Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein.
It's just
Ghislaine. Okay. I mean, hey man, she's a victim here too, No, all right. Let's see. Take me to the trends. Next, show me some. This toy poodle was the top trending dog in 2020. Virtually non-shedding, easily housebroken, really smart. Who knew? Well, you now. Really? Okay, toy poodle. All right, now Captain is wow. This I don't know, maybe somewhere behind us there's a data methodology, but they don't give you the real search. So let's go let's look at one of these here. It's like, let's see, it's got concerts, games, actors. Tom Hanks is the top trending actor. So let's do a quick Google search here. Tom Hanks. Why was Tom Hanks such a big deal in 2020?
There was some kind of I heard something about him being accused of being part of the pedophilia ring or something.
And didn't he get COVID in Australia?
Yes.
Maybe that was
him and his wife, I think.
Right. Net worth 350 million, by the way. Now, where do they show you on Google? I'm looking at how do you shoot, now I forget how to do this. More, let's see, is it no, settings. How do you look on Google and find how a particular term has been trending? For the history of that search term. You know what I'm talking about, Jim?
No.
So you used to be able to on Google enter a search term and then see how many other people were searching for it relatively easily. And I don't remember the details of that, but I just did a search, just Google search. I'm going to do Google search for Tom Hanks and then compare it to Jeffrey Epstein. That's where we're going with this. But I'm looking for.
Guys, I'm really stressed out right now. Been coming to my attention that a lot of Trump supporters have been figuring out the truth about me and my family, being in the, you know what I'm talking about. And I don't know what to do right now because everything's starting to come to light. I mean, these extremely reliable websites like 4chan, 8chan have been exposing shit. And it's like, if somebody wrote it on the internet, it must be true. And it is true. So it's like, I don't know how this is going to affect our whole New World agenda.
Was that Tom Hanks' son?
Coronavirus, even though they didn't predict anything.
I think so. Yeah, it looks like him.
It's been troublesome, to say the least.
He has videos where he was doing like a Jamaican accent for a while or something like that, or
so I might
something. I don't remember.
But just know that we're watching you, and if you're talking shit on the internet, you're going to be the first people sent to the FEMA camps. So
word up. Yeah, that's why. I guess that's probably why Tom Hanks was his kid jumped him up the Google list.
All right, so I'm at trends.google.com. That was still a smaller story than Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, true.
By a lot. Problem displaying this page, really, for Tom Hanks? Let's see. What is going on here? Oops, there was okay, so I'm at Google Trends, trends.google.com, search for Tom Hanks, and it says, oops, there was a problem displaying this page. Really? Well, let's try Jeffrey Epstein. No, it's not working. Just so everybody knows, I'm gonna turn my camera around for a second here. Can I do this? Oh, we'll just let's do this real quick. See that? Oops, there was a problem displaying the page. That's all right. So it's just okay. There we go. Someone else has it. CJ's got it.
Someone else.
Yeah. Who else is controlling? Oh, is it Jim? Could be Jim. Jim's hot shit on it sometimes, right? So Jeffrey Epstein. Can you show Jeffrey Epstein versus Tom Hanks?
This is
All
CJ
right.
doing it. So,
Doing it.
yeah,
Doing it in live time. Yeah, I love it. Yeah. Now, what are the numbers there?
Let's see. Oh, see, I mean, 100. Numbers represent search interests relative to the highest point on the chart for the given region and time. A value of 100 is the peak popularity for the term. A value of 50 means the term is half as popular. A score of 0 means that not enough data for this term.
All
That
right. Well,
make
yeah.
any sense at all. That's so
Yeah.
stupid.
Yeah. Well, what are we going to do? Have some breakthrough on the show live today and find out that Google is manipulating information?
Yeah, imagine that. Wow,
Yeah,
what a
no, it's
shocker.
yeah. So well, I don't think we need to go any further down this rabbit hole, but yeah, thank you for pointing out Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell seem to have been written out of 2020.
Made friends with him. Maxwell says her job was to hire cooks, maids, and pilots, all of adult age. I cannot tell you what Jeffrey's story is. I'm not able to.
CJ seems to really love this story. We're gonna have to come back to it, but yeah, he wanted an update on Ghislaine Maxwell. I think the latest was that she was petitioning for bond or something like that, right? Trying to get out in out of jail. That it wasn't. I saw it in the news. It was like, all right, well, CJ, get us some stuff in the Producers Club. All right, we don't have any callers, Jim. Let's get to our next blog. We got some news headlines, then we're gonna talk about Corona.
Okay, real quick, when Craig Darty weighs in, just talking about the why everybody calls it the worst year ever. He has a good theory I'd like to put out there. He says people tend to remember the good, like a lady having a baby. She says never again, but then later they see the good and want to have another. That's why it's always what you're currently experiencing. You never want to say it's the best thing ever. You don't recognize it as the best thing ever until later. You know what I mean?
So, okay, no, that's really interesting. So it's a bias against the present moment. You're saying that people are programmed to think that the present moment is bad, or this thing that we are experiencing or just experienced was bad. But we're more likely in the past to remember the good.
It's worth exploring more.
There's something to this for certain. It's just, does it? How does that play against the tendency to remember the bad as trauma, right? You know, that might be more on a personal level, but certainly one that is being affected at the society-wide level very deliberately right now.
Yeah, true that. Okay, all right. Let's go to our next block.
All right, I'm ready to talk about politics now. CNBC.com, 17 states tell Supreme Court they support Texas bid to reverse Biden win. Yeah, still happening. 17 states told the Supreme Court that they support an effort by Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton to sue to effectively reverse President-elect Joe Biden's projected win in the Electoral College. The filing came a day after Paxton asked the Supreme Court for permission to sue Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin over their election results, which Biden won in all instances. President Donald Trump filed a motion to intervene in the case in his personal capacity as a presidential candidate. Trump defeated Biden in the popular vote of the states supporting Paxton's bid. So when Trump is saying, "Oh yeah, I have all the support," he's not completely fabricating it at this point. He has momentum in contesting this to keep it going for quite a while. How this is going to play out come January, I still don't want to predict. Trump has been very good at proving pundits wrong. And now what he's doing, what he's threatening, is at a new level. From Mediaite.com, this headline: "This is going to escalate dramatically. Trump threatens a dangerous moment in Twitter spree assailing election." Pretty dense headline there. President Donald Trump went on a tweet storm Thursday morning, assailing the election results, threatening a forthcoming dangerous moment, and blasting President-elect Joe Biden and Georgia Governor Brian Kemp. The spree began with a simple tweet promoting wisdom and courage before threats and lambasting began. This is kind of weird. Wisdom and courage. All caps. 3 exclamation marks from the president. Wisdom and courage. Important things. TV, man, woman, camera. The president then quoted an unknown fan from one of his rallies in Georgia who threatened a future very dangerous moment and claimed that things were going to escalate dramatically. People are upset and they have a right to be. Georgia not only supported Trump in 2016, but now this is the only state in the deep South that went for Biden. Have they lost their minds? This is going to escalate dramatically. This is a very dangerous moment in our history, Trump wrote. The fact that our country is being stolen, a coup is taking place in front of our eyes, and the public can't take this anymore. Yeah. Weird grammar, fragmented sentences, not out of the norm for Trump, though. And I want to point this out. I mean, aside from like, hey, everybody, this is still where we are with the election. It's not over. How can you say that 2020 is the worst year ever? We're not even done with it yet, and there's still more good stuff in store. With the final level, we meet the boss, right? We meet the new boss, same as the old boss. So with Trump supporters, a dangerous moment. We were looking forward to an end to the election in November. We were looking forward to an end to petty political street violence. And yet it might be just culminating or escalating. This might be a continuous thing. You see how the Democrats opposed Trump for 4 years. Oh, he's not my president. It's not a legitimate election. You think Trump's supporters are less enthusiastic about their chosen leader? No, maybe. Perhaps a lot more so. This might be there might be a culminating moment coming up to the scheduled inauguration in January. It might be just a continual escalation of the petty bullshit street violence. It doesn't seem like relief is going to be here anytime soon, unfortunately. And I got to say to Donald Trump, really, you have done this country a huge disservice by creating this kind of conflict. And right now, when you're keeping your supporters going in what looks to be a losing battle for your own enrichment, you are really serving polarization in a horrific way. And what's funny is that you, Donald Trump, are a socialist, communist, fascist by the definition of those words. And you've got people thinking that you're going to save Western civilization, or you're going to save conservatism. Well, modern American conservatism has just become, red flavored communism, socialism, fascism anyway. But no, Donald Trump has really done this country a huge disservice in the polarization and conflict around the bullshit differences between liberals and conservatives. The artificial divide of the duopoly has reached a new level, and whether Trump is doing it as a response to incentives or unintended consequence of his strategy, he certainly does bear some individual deliberate responsibility for our current state of polarization. But he needs to take responsibility for more than that, according to BBC.com. In his final days in office, Trump orders series of executions. As President Donald Trump's days in the White House wane, his administration is racing through a string of federal executions. Yeah, you heard that right. 5 executions are scheduled before President-elect Joe Biden's 20 January inauguration, breaking with a 130-year-old precedent of pausing executions amid a presidential transition. Hey, you know how we're changing out leadership and organization? Let's just stop killing people for a minute and make sure that all goes well, all right? And then we'll go back to killing people. No, now as we're all packing up our shit, we're gonna turn up the killing people. And if all 5 take place, Mr. Trump will be the country's most prolific execution president in more than a century, overseeing the executions of 13 death row inmates since just July of this year. The 5 executions are to begin this week, starting with 40-year-old Brandon Bernard and 56-year-old Alfred Bourgeois. They are both, well, you got to kill the Bourgeois, yeah, of course. They are both scheduled to be put to death at a penitentiary in Terre Haute, Indiana. Attorney General William Barr said his Justice Department is simply upholding existing law, but critics have said the move is concerning, coming just weeks before Mr. Biden, who said he will seek to end the death penalty, takes office. Now, this really is the ultimate measure of how much you trust government. Do you trust it to decide who lives and who dies? Because there was a point in American history, or maybe human history, where if you locked someone up and they were really dangerous, maybe you couldn't be 100% certain that they couldn't escape, right? And you had to kill them in the interest of public safety. That time passed a long time ago. Certainly with the advent of modern prisons and prison security, when a government wants to lock someone up and make sure that they don't get out, at least by their own volition, they're not going to get out. It's not like Alcatraz where you can just make a paper mache version of your head and pile up some pillows under your blankets and then sneak out and swim across the bay to freedom. No. That's not how it works anymore. There's no excuse. There really is no excuse for killing somebody because they did something wrong if they're already incarcerated. In the moment, yeah, I mean, if a cop is coming at you shooting wildly and killing innocent people left and right, or a deranged lone gunman who doesn't have the gang in blue backing him up, and you have to kill someone is the only option that you have to save other lives, then yeah, I totally support that. But you've got them locked up already. What government is saying when it says we have to kill somebody is that, oh no, our prison system, despite the billions and billions of dollars you have given us to run it, is not secure enough to lock someone up with reasonable certainty that they will stay locked up. It's a pretty pathetic admission. Almost as pathetic as the idea that Donald Trump, or rather anybody, should be president, should have this power to just, the murdering people, yeah, let's just accelerate that right now. And that this is Trump's legacy. Very fitting. So what did the Trump administration do exactly? In July 2019, Mr. Barr announced the scheduled execution of 5 death row prisoners despite prevailing practices and public opinion. As the county's top legal official said at the time, this is Barr, quote, Congress has expressly authorized the death penalty. The Justice Department upholds the rule of law, and we owe it to the victims and their families to carry forward the sentence imposed by our justice system. There's so much wrong with this. Well, Congress authorized it so we can do it. Really? Well, if Congress authorized you to jump off a bridge, would you do that too? Really? And yeah, we uphold the rule of law, right or wrong. Basically, we're willing to do the wrong thing. We're willing to violate ethics if the words on paper say so. If the magic government writing says that we can kill people and we want to, we're going to kill people. But the worst part of that quote, the victims and their families. Really? In a just society, if you wrong someone, you have to make them whole. You have to do everything you can to undo your wrong, to make it right. That's justice. This is vengeance. This is punishment, not justice. If you killed, my someone in my family, and society decided, well, now you're my slave. You took a life. Now I get to take your life. Well, if I don't want to take it, like destroy. If I own your life now, or if I have some claim to it, why would I want to destroy that? No, I would want to put you in a debtor's prison for the rest of your life and get mailbox money. Like that. Why just destroy these lives? And it is really the state of the death penalty is a measure of how brutal we are as a society, how backwards, how primitive, and that we allow this to happen is a huge tragedy. And I think the same could be said about the Trump presidency itself. Killing 5 people is a very as tragic and inappropriate, and as much as it shouldn't happen, I must say it is a fitting end to the Trump presidency. Next up, CNN.com. Democratic congressman says he did not share sensitive information with suspected Chinese spy. Representative Eric Swalwell told CNN Wednesday that he was shocked when the FBI informed him several years ago that he was targeted by a suspected Chinese intelligence operative as part of a broader effort to establish ties with U.S. politicians, reiterating that he immediately cooperated with federal investigators who were looking into the individual in question. Swalwell was named in an Axios report detailing what U.S. officials believe to be a political intelligence operation run by China's main civilian spy agency between 2011 and 2015. The woman at the center of the operation, Fang Fang, you're going to hear jokes about that, or Christine Fang, took part in fundraising activities for Swalwell's 2014 re-election campaign, helped place an intern in the California Democrats' office. But as stated in the initial report, Swalwell was never suspected of any wrongdoing, a point he reiterated to CNN on Wednesday. I was told about this individual and I offered to help, he told CNN's Jim Scudo. Is that how you say that? Anyway, all I did was cooperate, and the FBI said that yesterday. So, I don't want to get too far into the story right now because I think this is developing. There's a lot more that's going to come out about it. But this is, and I suspect the story will be buried. Governments around the world don't really want you to know that they are spying on each other and manipulating each other, and just how vulnerable they are to that manipulation, because it would generally weaken confidence in the system itself. But I think in this case, we do have a bit of a breakthrough of a story that is going to lead to more of that good government confidence destroying headline type news that we love here at Adam versus the Man. More international news here. Yahoo.com has this story from Bloomberg. China races toward plan to blacklist redlist firms for behavior. Yeah, China. Yeah, surprise, surprise, right? From the social ranking government, the Communist Party of China. Yeah, of course, they're going to have similar ways of manipulating corporations, as if that wasn't obvious enough already. China is making swift advances with a system for measuring the social credit worthiness of companies, a sweeping data collection effort that could solidify Beijing's control over foreign and domestic enterprises and possibly challenge the dominance of U.S. credit rating companies. The corporate social credit system was originally dreamed up 2 decades ago, but it has since expanded into an ambitious national project that is now taking shape, according to a new 95-page report from the consulting firm Trivium China for the U.S.-China Economic and Security Review Commission. The CSCS effort gathers information on companies from at least 44 state agencies and their branch offices in every province across the country. Now, There's a huge amount of data aggregation, of course, going on in this. There's a huge amount of government control being expanded with this. And as it says, the CSCS would penalize companies with poor compliance records by reducing their access to the market and subjecting them to public censure versus via blacklists, while rewarding consistently compliant companies with economic incentives and public praise via red lists. Yeah, red, the color of communism, and the Republicans. Yeah, because remember, the Republicans represent the red flavored half of the American Communist Party. So really, Democrats should be red too, and then we'd be a little more uniform. And that uniformity is this large scale consolidation, not just of the data that we see with this story, but of control and corporate power. And what this means in China, in terms of less competition, there's going to be less vibrance in corporate competition, and we see even more corporate resources being allocated based on government policy rather than the needs of the market. And what this is going to, what we see China and really any government of the world that's operating at that scale, there is a huge drive to uniformity and consolidation of power and decision making as a whole. So in China, this rush this could be the tipping point. I don't want to overblow this story because is China about to implode because their corporations all failed because they couldn't respond to market forces, and instead they were all playing this social corporate ranking system game? I don't think it's going to be quite that dramatic, but this may be a major step in that direction of consolidation. Another story from China. Reuters.com has this headline: China launches gray zone warfare to subdue Taiwan. Having crushed the resistance to its rule in Hong Kong, China is moving against Taiwan with irregular tactics meant to exhaust the island's military, which is in bad shape to confront the threat. It's unclear how the incoming Biden administration will respond. Now, this is where humanity has to look at the Chinese government as, I hate to be dramatic, but yeah, the Chinese government is a threat to all of humanity. With that story we covered of its internal policies of corporate red lists and blacklists representing a significant trend of consolidation of decision-making authority, that's happening politically as well with China's imperialism. And I'm not just talking about Tibet, yeah, free Tibet, but Taiwan now on the horizon. But look back, you want to talk about 2020 being a shitty year for humanity, you got to include the story of Hong Kong, the protests, the Winnie the Pooh posters making fun of Xi Jinping, the brutal crackdowns on the pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong, looking for independence and more home rule in this semi-autonomous and now much less so autonomous region. Taiwan, now in the crosshairs, months after eliminating a popular challenge to its rule in Hong Kong, China's turning to an even higher stakes target, self-governing Taiwan. The island has been bracing for conflict with China for decades, and in some respects, that battle has now begun. I think of Sun Tzu in The Art of War, right? The outcome of every battle is determined before it begins. And if you truly know your enemy, you need not fear the outcome of any battle. It's not the final titanic clash that Taiwan has long feared, with Chinese troops storming the beaches. Instead, the People's Liberation Army, China's 2 million strong military, has launched a form of gray zone warfare, this irregular type of conflict, which stops short of an actual shooting, where the aim is to subdue the foe through exhaustion. And, echoes of the tactics used against Hong Kong as well, although in that case, the idea of a force-on-force war was never really a possibility because the Hong Kong force would have been the protesters. There was a similar sort of long-term leveraging of much bigger powers. And I think that is one of the key elements behind the Chinese government's expansion that we have to be afraid of, that we have to be aware of and go, yeah, this is how they do it. And when, it's sort of like the Niemöller poem, World War II, right? Well, first they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak out because I wasn't a Jew. And then the Social Democrats, and I didn't speak out because I wasn't one of them either. And then they came for me, and there's no one left to speak. This is the trend of modern bureaucratic, large, centralized, coercive governments. Is that when you give anyone or group of people a certain critical mass of that authority and power, it's going to accelerate, and it's going to lead to at least a tendency to move towards greater consolidation of power. If China is able to really apply all of its weight and leverage through this gray zone warfare in Taiwan, it will have achieved a new level of imperialism, at least in China's modern era. Beijing is conducting, and I hate how Beijing. I hate how mainstream media uses government or capitals of countries to refer to their central governments. It would be more accurate to say here the Chinese Communist Party is conducting waves of threatening forays from the air while ratcheting up existing pressure tactics to erode Taiwan's will to resist, say current and former senior Taiwanese and U.S. military officers. The flights, they say, complement ambitious landing exercises, naval patrols, cyber attacks, and diplomatic isolation. The risk of conflict is now at its highest level in decades. PLA aircraft are flying menacingly towards airspace around Taiwan almost daily, sometimes launching multiple sorties on the same day. Since mid-September, Chinese warplanes have flown more than 100 of these missions, according to a Reuters compilation of flight data drawn from official statements by Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense. The data shows that in periods when political tension across the Taiwan Strait peaks, China sends more aircraft, including some of its most potent fighters and bombers. So how this plays out in Taiwan, I mean, there's by the way, link is in the description and the notes for today's show. There is so much more to this. And the relationship with Biden and the U.S. military empire, and just quick number here from the same story: 400 is the number of Harpoon anti-ship missiles approved for sale by the United States to Taiwan. So the bigger potential story here is that with Biden coming in, who, like every Democrat and Republican, is a big fan of war and the military-industrial complex and proxy wars and blah, 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 serving their sponsors and their purpose, war being the health of the state, its main purpose, to help the super rich get richer at the expense of the rest of us. War is one of its greatest tools. And it is a tool of consolidation of power and wealth. So many other evils tied up in war. That great evil, which includes all other evils humanity is capable of. And the possibility of this turning into a hot war, if it's not already a proxy war, really between China and the United States, is the bigger story that we have to be looking out for here. And yes, we will certainly keep you updated as things develop in Taiwan. Another quick international story here. Wait, what we got Telegram chats. Trump announces Israel-Morocco to normalize relations. I think we can come back to this tomorrow. CJ's hitting the pipe with Tommy Chong there. This year hasn't, and Festerfink, our friend, weighs in. This year hasn't been that bad, truth be had. I don't really go to bars, restaurants, gyms, or go shopping at clothing stores, etc. I got curbside cannabis, and I get to work from home a few days a week. Not too bad. Yeah. All right. Thank you for sharing that, brother. You know what? CJ, Mercedes says, what did I miss? Oh, we didn't do the Corona block. No, you missed the development of a proxy war between China and the United States over Taiwan. And Jim said, yes, what was it? We cured hunger, world hunger, and COVID. Actually, we did cure. Well, first of all, it was our producer CJ with his wonderful intro and outro little video clip for our COVID blocks, who first contained COVID on Anna versus Man. So it's contained. We can't have COVID outside of when the intro plays and when it's over. So if you never go into that block, or if you go into that block wearing a mask, you'll never get Corona anyway. But we solved it. We cured it with government policy. And the fact that governments are doing this shows they don't care. But no, all they have to do is make COVID illegal and ban it, just like with guns. I mean, they do, schools where they have little signs, gun-free zones. Hey, just put up a coronavirus-free zone. Boom, problem solved. Okay, I have too much fun being Adam Loves the Man sometimes. So, CJ, if we don't have any callers or any other critical comments, we got about 20 minutes left in the show. Do you want to get COVID out of the way today, or do you want to do a big block of COVID tomorrow and actually we'll skip COVID today entirely? It'll be like COVID didn't exist on Thursday, December 10th. It'll be like I never even mentioned the word COVID. It'll be like COVID is just some made up term that has no real meaning or reference to reality. There's no coronavirus. It's just like it didn't exist today. I mean, that's pretty cool, right? All right, let's do that. So this is not medical advice, and that is our Corona block for the day. Thank you, CJ. Moving on. MSN has this story from AFP. Global activists slam Nigeria for crackdown on protesters. Global activists and celebrities on Thursday hit out at the Nigerian government over a violent crackdown on peaceful protesters demonstrating against police brutality 2 months ago. In an open letter addressed to Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari and made public in Lagos to coincide with International Human Rights Day, 60 activists condemned the government for unwanted force against its own unarmed citizens, writing under the auspices of Diaspora Rising, which calls itself an advocacy body formed to strengthen bonds among members of the global Black family. The activists called for the release of jailed protesters as well as the prosecution of security operatives responsible for shooting civilians in Lagos. They also urged the government to lift a ban on public demonstrations. Among the signatories were U.S. activist Opal Tometi, actors Danny Glover and Kerry Washington. Who is Opal Tometi? I don't know. Someone who can get Danny Glover and Kerry Washington. I don't know who Kerry Washington is either. So I sign on to something. Swedish teenage eco warrior Greta Thunberg. Oh yes, we know her. Singer Alicia Keys, civil rights campaigner Angela Davis, U.S. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, Nigerian American rapper Jidena and Bernice King, the daughter of Martin Luther King Jr. But the story isn't so much the letter as much as what actually happened, and it was that Nigeria. So back to this. Amnesty International said security forces shot and killed at least 10 people during a protest at Lekki toll gates. Remember, we mentioned that story a couple of months ago. The epicenter of the demonstrations in Lagos on October 20. But the military has denied shooting live rounds, insisting that soldiers only fired blanks at the crowds that had gathered in defiance of a curfew. However, the Nigerian authorities have said that more than 100 people, including 43 security operatives, were killed nationwide following a day of street protests. Yeah, let's find a way to blame the protests. All right, and now we come to our Corona block of stories, and we're gonna skip over that like Corona wasn't a thing, just not a big deal. DailyNews.com, NYDailyNews.com has this very exciting headline: America's longest serving inmate for non-violent marijuana offense freed after 30 years in prison. Yeah, Florida man believed to be America's longest serving inmate for non-violent marijuana crimes has been released from prison after serving 31 years of his 90-year sentence. Wow. Richard DeLisi on Tuesday walked out of the South Bay Correctional Facility in Palm Beach, eager to make up for lost time. He was greeted by tearful family members, though several of them were missing from the warm reunion. During his decades behind bars, DeLisi's wife died, as did his 25-year-old son and both his parents. Things you never get back. People. His adult daughter was in a car accident and suffered a paralyzing stroke. As a result, he never met 2 granddaughters. As he said, "I'm a blessed human being, a survivor." What a great attitude. The 71-year-old has been incarcerated since 1989, when he was convicted on charges of racketeering and trafficking in cannabis conspiracy. Even at the time, 90 years was a harsh punishment, with a typical sentence capping off between 12 and 17 years. Now, racketeering and trafficking and cannabis conspiracy, when they're going after someone for something like that, they will do everything they can to tack on something violent. Apparently, they weren't able to in this case, but they were able to get a 90-year sentence for victimless crimes, non-crimes, racketeering and trafficking in cannabis conspiracy. Now, the racketeering, this isn't real like racketeering. This is like, oh, you organized your black market cannabis business, okay, and therefore it is a conspiracy. So he was 40 years old at the time, and DeLisi says that he believes the judge mistakenly thought he was part of an organized crime unit. But he was arrested along with his older brother Ted a year prior on allegations they smuggled marijuana from Colombia to South Florida. That's doing a great service to humanity, helping Floridians get stoned. I mean, they need it. Maybe now more than ever, but certainly 40 years ago or 30 years ago. Anyway, they were both sentenced to serve 3 consecutive 30-year sentences. Ted was freed in 2013 with a successful appeal. DeLisi's release has long been pushed by advocacy group The Last Prisoner Project, and a collection of attorneys who recently cited the global pandemic in their calls for his immediate freedom. With asthma, diabetes, and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, DeLisi is at high risk for contracting a severe case of coronavirus. Oh, because his health was so well respected, and he was so taken care of as a ward of the state. No, 31 years in jail. I mean, to survive that alone is a significant feat. But to come out with as much of your health as DeLisi did is still hugely significant, especially when you start at age 40. Damn. Still, DeLisi did his best to make the most of his time in prison. He said he found God behind bars and has also learned how to read and write. As he said, prison changed me. I never really knew who God was, and now I know. And it changed the way I talk to people and treat people. For me, being there so long, I was able to take gang members from gangs to gentlemen. Now he wants to make the best of every bit of my time advocating for the release of other inmates through his organization, freedelisi.com. So I hope you'll check that out, Free DeLisi. Pretty much how it sounds, DELISI, freedelisi.com. The system needs to change, and I'm going to try my best to be an activist. Well, congratulations, Richard. You are already an incredible activist and have touched so many lives just with this huge story coming out today, and now people inspired to really start righting the wrongs of the drug war. And there's so many wrongs still being committed. There's still countless Americans. I mean, one is too many locked up behind bars for victimless crimes. But I go back and I think if anything, we have been far too kind and humane and forgiving in waging our side, that is the people's side, the drug users' side of the war on drugs. Who put DeLisi behind bars for victimless crimes 31 years ago? What attorneys, what prosecutors did this to him? How many people have died in jail after being convicted for victimless crimes? What would justice in those cases be? It's not enough to say, stop hurting people. We have to, at some point, hold the violent criminals in government who have been waging the aggressive side, the initiatory side of the drug war, as opposed to the defensive side, the justified side of the drug war. We have to hold them accountable. I truly hope that someday there will be a proper accounting for all of these evil government officials who have made their living victimizing innocent people. But if maybe that is too much to hope for, at very least, I think pushing for reparations for stoners is going to be the next step in fighting for justice as we come to, I guess we are now at the beginning of the middle of the end of the war on drugs. Yeah. We are in the process of ending the use of victimless crimes as the excuse to victimize people. And I think what we need to be pushing for next is reparations for stoners. Everybody who's been wronged by the system, who's been arrested for a victimless crime, we need to figure out a way to sue government and take back at least a little bit of what has been stolen from us. All right, next we have some more interesting, law and order news. New Jersey man charged for illegal suppressors that he tried to turn into police, from bearingarms.com. A deputy fire chief from Carlstadt, New Jersey, is facing charges of possessing a prohibited weapon after he was arrested with a silencer outside of the borough hall. While prosecutors in Bergen County and New York City media are portraying the arrest as the culmination of investigation into international arms trafficking, Matthew Moran's attorney says his client was actually arrested for trying to do the right thing. Evan Knappen recently detailed the events that led up to Moran's arrest last week and paints a far different picture than the one portrayed by prosecutors. So, yeah, just another, this will be in the notes. I don't even want to get into this. It's just a really disgusting story of someone being a victim of the state for victimless crimes. Another crime and punishment update from Newsweek via MSN.com. Black man. Make it sound like a superhero name, right? Black man shot multiple times by police was carrying sandwich, not gun, family says. What kind of superhero walks around carrying a sandwich instead of a gun? It must be really powerful. Well, probably not bulletproof. The family of Casey Christian Goodson Jr., a 23-year-old black man who was shot and killed on his doorstep by an Ohio sheriff's deputy on Friday, December 4th, say that he was carrying a sandwich and not a gun, as legal authorities have previously claimed. Yeah. Surprise, surprise. Oh, by the way, did you know that police lie kind of all the time? U.S. Marshal Peter Tobin claimed that Goodson had waved a gun at Ohio Sheriff's Deputy Jason Mead while driving by him on Friday afternoon. Mead, who had been searching for a fugitive, followed Mead to his home. Jason Mead followed the victim, Goodson, home. That's not the right name here. But okay, so again, still doesn't justify this, right? But Mead, followed Goodson to his home, where he confronted him and allegedly asked Goodson to drop his gun before shooting him to death, and Goodson reportedly refused. Goodson later died at the hospital from his injuries. While Tobin claimed that Goodson's gun, which he was licensed to carry, was found at the scene, Goodson's relatives and their attorneys said that Goodson wasn't carrying a gun; he was carrying a Subway sandwich. Furthermore, Goodson's family claims he was shot while walking into the home rather than in front of the house. The family also said that Goodson's grandmother and two toddlers, who were not his own children, witnessed the shooting. Although the state's attorney general usually investigates police shootings, it declined to do so in this case because it wasn't asked to do so until 3 days after the shooting, when witnesses had already been interviewed and the scene of the shooting had been cleared. Now, you would think, oh, wait, didn't we have that huge round of Black Lives Matter protests and police reform and defunding the police and new scrutiny so that this wouldn't be possible? I thought we solved the problem of racism in America entirely. No, not even close. But there's a bigger problem here, obviously, because we still have a government that puts its law enforcers, its trigger pullers, its enforcement class in a special legal category where they're allowed to do stuff like this. And they know they're allowed to do stuff like this. And what do I mean by allowed? A cop on the streets patrolling, if he can say he's looking for a fugitive, you can say you're patrolling. Why even make an excuse? You were looking for a fugitive. Now, any cop at any time pretty much can say they were looking for a fugitive because they get these police briefings, right? When they come onto their shift or however it is, these are the fugitives that you have to be looking for while you're out patrolling. You see someone you don't like for whatever reason, because they're black, brown, yellow, green, purple. Gotta watch out for those purple people, especially. I don't care. Shoot the purple people, and especially the purple people eaters. But when you have this ability to go and just harass and then shoot someone who you don't like, because really, what is it in the United States? Because they're black or they're poor? Yeah, because those are the people that are the police feel safer going after. And in this case, if you weren't a cop, even if you were, say, Dog the bounty hunter, and you did this, you get charged with murder, you go to jail. Maybe you get to put some bullshit story like a cop out later, and maybe put enough doubt in a jury's mind that you can avoid a sentence. Maybe. But if you're a cop, oh, you just get to, oh no, I was looking for a fugitive and he had a gun. And yes, there is a racial component to this. I don't want to discount this in any way. The bigger problem is one that affects all of us. And yes, Black Americans and other minorities disproportionately, but really all the downtrodden who experience police brutality. And why do we experience it? Because police are not held accountable for their actions. Why? Because they work for government, which is not held accountable for its actions, which is run by politicians who are not held accountable for their actions. And they are the criminals behind this entire system that has to stop. The thin blue line is not something that protects we the people from each other, from ourselves. No, the thin blue line is that which protects government from we the people who would challenge its power, whether with a gun or a sandwich. All right, let's see. I'm frozen here. How much time do we have left today? Should we save our tech block of good news for tomorrow as well? Yeah, we just got 3 minutes. Let's check in with our co-host, Comment Jim Freedom. So we got 2 exciting blocks to look forward to tomorrow. We've got a COVID block, a whole block of COVID. We'll cut it up into little slices and serve it on crackers. We've got a bunch of high-tech news and good stuff to look forward to. We've got a new whale species discovered in Mexico, and stuff about a giant iceberg. Yeah, we'll get to all that tomorrow. But let's check in with the audience and put a good news bow on this for December 10th, shall we?
Absolutely. Well, I couldn't imagine being Richard DeLisi, spending 30 years like low key 209 says someone better get that man a joint ASAP. I'm sure they already did.
Yeah. Florida? Yeah.
Yeah. But he also chimes in and says there is no justice in this situation or similar situations. If you've never been to jail, you don't understand. Incarceration takes everything you have from you, your dignity, your freedom, your family, your friends, and anything you hope to have, and then holds it at arm's reach. That's what I'm saying. Like, I like to think that if I was in that situation and I got out and got freedom, I'd be pissed and ready to be active. But I could also see and wouldn't blame him one bit if he chose to just live the rest of his life. You know what I mean? 30 years in that situation can really beat the fight out of you, so to say, make you not want to go back. I mean, you know, that's a scary situation. I think he's done his part. He's done his time, obviously, for the movement. He's done, you know, if anything, he should just do interviews and talk. But I wouldn't even blame the man if he didn't, you know, because I can't even imagine what he's been through. That's all I'm trying to say. Horrible.
Yeah. I mean, even if all he ends up doing is coming out as a figurehead of a cannabis activism organization with his name on it in order to get his story out. Yeah, you're right, and I should have. I mean, I couldn't have praised him enough to say that. You know, not thinking about yourself, keeping it going, keeping pushing right now after doing 30 years for victimless cannabis crimes, man.
Yeah,
good for him.
If he feels to keep going, yeah, we definitely support him, obviously.
Yeah. Well, by the way, our friend Peter Yapel has at least worked on his case or helped with the general effort, and might be able to get him on our show as a guest. So he
definitely should be able to.
You know, what is it about 30 years that gave you motivation? I mean, obviously, yeah, but I love that last sentence, that quote, like, he's going to be an activist now. Yes. Thank you.
Here you go. Don't be a statist checking in. Can you see that? He says, "Good morning, fellow statists. Am I late?"
No, you're just on time. Thank you for joining us. All right. Yeah. Let's. Any other comments before we get to the good news to wrap this up?
No, let's good news it up and wrap it around.
All right. Well, as CJ says, today's good news is for the ladies. It was 190 years ago today. Emily Dickinson was born in Amherst, Massachusetts, regarded as one of America's favorite poets. The innovative proto-modernist only had 10 poems and one letter published during her lifetime. After her death, a treasure of 40 notebooks and loose sheets were found by her sister in a locked chest, nearly 1,800 poems, revealing the breadth of work penned during her mostly solitary 55-year lifetime. Now, speaking of for the ladies, there was someone else who was born on this day. I'm not allowed to say how many years ago today, and that was my father. Happy birthday to Charles Ray Kokesh. Yes, that is the same Charles Ray Kokesh of Kokesh versus the SEC, his Supreme Court case, which he won 9-0, and is still not, I don't say legally allowed, not legally advised to discuss yet, but I'm eagerly awaiting his little explosion of activism when that is all worked out. Speaking of Wyoming, because it was on this day so many years ago, my father was born in Sundance, Wyoming. It was on this day in 1869, the U.S. territory of Wyoming granted women the right to vote. The first Nobel, on this day in 1900. So I'm trying to make some bad joke about my dad and this being a good news for the ladies, considering he's on his third wife now. And by the way, we have from my brother's wedding last year, the most amazing picture of all three of my moms. My real mom, my first stepmom, my second mom, or my moms 1, 2, and 3, all sitting together enjoying a glass of wine. So fun little memory there for me. Thank you. On this day in 1901, the first Nobel Prizes were awarded, and on this date, which many notables have received, including Schweitzer, Sakharov, Sadat and Begin, Lech Walesa, Martin Luther King Jr., Desmond Tutu, and Jimmy Carter. On this day in 1932, Thailand adopted a constitution, becoming a constitutional monarchy. I don't know if that's good news, probably progress. On this day in 1965, the Grateful Dead played their first concert at the Fillmore in San Francisco. On this day in 1978, Israel's Prime Minister Menachem Begin and President of Egypt Anwar Sadat were jointly awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. I don't know why they have that as two separate bullet points. On this day in 1990, 100 British hostages held by Saddam Hussein for 4 months were freed. On this day in 1998, 6 astronauts entered the new International Space Station, becoming the first guests to stay in the outpost 250 miles up. And on this day in 1948, the United Nations adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, a very misguided document, although I can still let you put this in the good news category. And 31 years ago today, the first pro-democracy public demonstrations occurred in Mongolia, spearheaded by mostly young people, the beginning of the end for the 70-year period of authoritarian rule. Yeah, all right. A lot of good news. So thanks so much for joining us. Don't forget to support the show. Go to AdamVersusTheMan.com. You can find us on Patreon there, patreon.com/AdamVersusTheMan. Please join our Producers Club for $10 a month there. You can also support the show by buying our merch at Adam Versus the Man if you are one of our better patrons. Figure that one out. If you are one, and it's look at the Patreon page, you can figure it out. If you are one of our better patrons, you also get 15% off and free shipping on all your orders at AdamVersusTheMan.com. You can also support us through CigarFederation.com, where promo code Adam10, ADAM10, gets you 10% off. And MakeThemDebate.com. Let's make another debate happen there. Don't forget to follow the Garden of Freedom at the Garden of Freedom on Instagram. And with that, peace and love, y'all. Choose happiness and be excellent to each other.